Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Drive Electric Earth Day webinar. This is a culmination of a series of events that took place this past week. My name is Noel Marin. I'm a board member of Hawaii EV. Today we have a number of board members here too. We have Sonia Kass, who's also president of Kauai EV, Rob Weltman, president of Maui Nui EV, Nanette, Vinton, who is also president of Tesla Hawaii Club. We also have Tam Hunt, who is a board member and also a leader of Big Island EV. Lorn Douglas is one of our Big Island EV leads, so thanks for joining. And we have a number of EV club members and guests. So thanks very much for making it here. So for those of you who are not familiar with us, we're an all-volunteer nonprofit coalition. We're focused on accelerating clean transportation throughout the state. And we do this through advocacy, through education, and we also support the build-out of charging infrastructure. We're also a chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association. This is a national organization that was established in the 60s to accelerate clean transportation across the nation. I want to call attention to the clubs. There are a number of clubs across the state now, and it's through these clubs that we are able to make a lot of progress locally. So this organization, Hawaii EV, communicates throughout the state, but it's boots on the ground, right? That makes it really happen. So thanks to all of our club leads and club members for making that happen. You can find information about our clubs on our website, hawaiiev.org. The efforts of these groups and also a number of organizations across the state has resulted in increase in adoption. And what you see here are the latest figures. As of March, we're now hovering 19,000 EVs across the state. And unfortunately, it's still less than 2%. That's like 1.8% of the million or so vehicles that we have. So we're making a lot of progress, and the curve is looking great. However, we still have a long ways to go. So, we have our work cut out for us, but we're in good hands. So this is the program we have for today. We'll do a recap of the celebration we had over the past week or so. We'll review EV ownership experience through actual EV owners. We'll have a couple of presentations on buying and charging. And then there's a video that we put together that puts a spotlight on some of the latest EVs that are out there. And then I have a call to action. It takes just a few minutes to do that. I hope everyone will take the opportunity to do. This year's Drive Electric Earth Day event was very different from previous years because of the lifting of COVID restrictions, we're able to do in-person events all across. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a short video that will help us relive the events that took place. So let me do another share here. discussion. As many of you know, especially those of us who are EV owners, learning about EV ownership experiences from other individuals who've actually purchased cars, the electric cars, is a great way to really understand whether or not the vehicles are for you. It's always great to have these conversations with EV owners. We do that with our in-person events, and today we're also going to do it virtually. So today we have a few folks who are going to be sharing their experiences. We have, I'm going to stop sharing here. And so we have Andy Kass from Kauai, David Smith from Oahu, Cara Flores from Maui, and Lorn Douglas from Big Island. So what I'd like to do is maybe have each of you introduce yourselves briefly, the car that you have, how long you've had the EV, just really brief introduction to your ownership, and then we'll go into a panel discussion. Shall we start with you, Lorn?
Oh, aloha, everyone. I'm Lorn Douglas, and I was an early adopter with an original Leaf, and I'm now sitting in my fifth EV, which is a brand new first edition Kia EV6.
Thanks, Lorn. Cara?
Hi, I am a Tesla Model Y owner. I am in Maui, and before our Tesla, we also owned a hybrid. I still own a hybrid Highlander and a Prius before that. But we replaced our minivan with a Tesla Model Y, and I'm on the wait list for a Tesla Cybertruck.
Nice, nice. Welcome. Andy?
Hi, I'm Andy Kass. I live on Kauai, east side Wailua. I've been an EV driver since 2015. We have two first generation Nissan Leafs, and we really like them.
Thank you and welcome. And then finally, we have David Smith. David?
My name is David Smith, and I've got a 2012 Tesla Model S. Well, when I reserved it in 2010, it was sight unseen. Nobody knew what it looked like, so I took a chance.
An early adopter. Lorn can relate. I can relate as well. So welcome everybody. So why don't we go? I have a few questions, and the first one I'd like to direct to all of you would be, what made you decide? What made you decide to go with an electric car? Shall we start with
I'll start.
Lorn?
So a friend of mine gave me a hard time about carbon credits around 2007, I think. And so as an engineer, I looked into it, and then I decided to really upgrade my solar system and become self-reliant, and I was on the wait list for my Model S about 5 years. So I got on the wait list pretty much at the beginning once I saw that Tesla was a real company, and then I ended up getting a Leaf before that while I was on the waiting list. It was just a weird situation. So yeah, I wanted to be carbon. Actually, now I'm living a carbon negative lifestyle.
Thank you, Lorn. David?
Yeah, like I said, I reserved in 2010. What made me do it is I crunched the numbers and, total cost of ownership. Prior to this, I was driving Mustang GT, and I was living out in Kapolei and commuting, between Kapolei and downtown and Pearl Harbor area every day, putting so many miles on the car. So with the gas prices at the time going up, I crunched the numbers and found that even in Hawaii, it was pretty much a break-even deal on getting the electric car. And at the time, they just started producing the Roadster, and it was one of those periods when Tesla almost didn't make payroll, and Elon injected his own personal cash into the business. And that gave me the confidence to go ahead and make the reservation, because I knew that the car was going to be, around for a while, because the company was under the management of somebody who really wanted it to work. And also I had studied the designs of Franz von Wolfhausen, the other cars that he had designed, and liked those designs. So, like I said, sight unseen, I made the reservation and happy about it.
Thank you. So I heard appreciation for the technology, but one thing you shared at the very beginning was a total cost of ownership. So there was the cost benefits that I heard in that. And Lorn, it sounds like the carbon, the ability to reduce carbon is another concern. Andy, what about you?
Similar reasons. So to Lorn, same as Lorn, we were trying to reduce our carbon footprint. So we also installed solar panels. So we're able to charge the car at home from the solar system. So, great reduction in, cost of ownership, no gas anymore. Also, we're a small family, active, going all around the island. So in 2015, when we bought our Leaf, it had already been proven for 4 or 5 years on the road. So, we felt confident, it could get us all around the island, and it has for 8 years. We take it outdoors, pile the kayaks and the surfboards on it, go camping, hiking. So they've been great for getting around and, just doing what we need, active lifestyle.
Thank you. Cara, how about you?
Yeah. So I wanted an electric car for a long time, and I actually got on the list for the Cybertruck the very first day when I found out that it had 6 seats. We do have 3 children of our own, and actually we used to do foster care, so sometimes we had more. But when we watched the documentary a long time ago, I don't know what year it was, that the vice president had done about climate change, my husband and I got really concerned because we had, at the time, a toddler, a baby, and I was really concerned about the future with climate change for them. So we bought hybrid first, and we bought a hybrid Prius that we would squish into, and then we had a minivan. But I've always held a lot of guilt about driving a minivan because they get terrible gas mileage. But with a lot of children, it's very practical. So we're on the wait list for the Cybertruck, and the Model Y came out and had an announcement they're going to have a 3rd row model. And so my husband just signed up thinking, well, we've been waiting for 2 years for the Cybertruck. It won't come anytime soon. And I think it was 4 weeks later, they emailed and said, your Model Y is on its way. And we were like, oh, we weren't planning for that. So we actually hadn't saved up for that car yet. I'd been putting savings away for the Cybertruck. And so we ended up getting car payment, which we didn't have a car payment when we bought it. So that was a big decision. But when we did the math, the car payment was less than our monthly gas bill for the van. And that kind of made the decision. I was like, well, obviously the car payment is smarter than paying that in gas and hurting the environment. So that's what we ended up doing. And I don't know if you can hear all the children in the background, but I had the full 7 people in there yesterday. So we do use all 7 seats of it some days, and it does replace the minivan really well. I would think for people who have maybe child seats or whatever, our kids are bigger now, that might be a little harder, but yeah, it's been wonderful. I love having it over the minivan, and anytime we're taking a whole bunch of people, we put everybody in the Tesla. So
excellent. Well, that's great.
Yeah,
and I hope the audience is, picking up some of the insights, which could also be inspiration for others. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll, get to them towards the end of the segment. So this next question is more about guidance for anybody who's out there looking for an electric car, wondering if it's the right thing for them. You kind of answer some of your responses, answer this, but if you can share your experiences with driving and charging, and maybe also comment about ownership costs. Total. We mentioned this earlier, total cost of ownership. But just if you can comment on that, because as you know, these days with inflation, there are cost pressures. People are really cognizant about keeping their expenses down. So if you could maybe comment on your experiences with driving, charging, and also cost. Should we just do the same order? Lorn, do you want to start?
Okay, so my wife and I, we have accumulated over 150,000 gas-free miles, and we've never been stranded on the side of the road. And in the early days, there were so few chargers, and we had a Leaf that had a very rapidly declining battery. We still never got stuck. It's not an issue. And now all of the cars that I'm aware of have the ability for the high voltage DC charging, and there are several chargers here on the island, and range anxiety should no longer be an issue. At home, I think I've had even more chargers than cars, but right now I have a ChargePoint charger. It works great. They're very reliable, and pretty much overnight anybody can fill up their car with easily installed level 2 charger.
Great, thank you. Who wants to go next?
Yeah,
David?
I'll go next. I've charged every way you can think of. When I first got the car, obviously there were fewer charging stations, but there were also even fewer EVs on the road. So I live in the Ward, Ala Moana area where there were multiple available chargers that have free charging. So I relied on that for 4 or 5 years until the number of EVs started increasing, and then there were wait times to get those chargers, and increasing incidents of being unplugged by people that thought because I had a Tesla, they needed to charge more than I did. So I would, do a 90% charge every few days and then just run it down. After the competition for chargers got, really bad, I opted to get a level 1 charger in my parking stall in my apartment building, which I attended the board meetings for years advocating them getting it, but because of the electric capacity of building, they couldn't do it until they switched it over to some EV lighting to reduce their overall electric usage to have some available for electric vehicle charging. Now there's about a dozen EV charging stalls that people have put in, and 2 common stalls that the Owners Association has put in. So anyways, I initially did a level 1 charger and used that for about a year or 2. But because of the length of the run, there was a little bit of unstable voltage using the level 1 charger. It was a 20 amp NEMA 520 plug. So I switched over to a wall charger, which is, 240 volts and 40 amps. So now I have more stable voltage, and I just it's convenient, just plug in every night, and in the morning I'm ready to go.
Great. Thanks, David. Appreciate your sharing your experience with getting charging in a space like yours. That's definitely a challenge we don't see as much here. So it's good that you've lived that, and it'll be good to share that information with others as well. Andy?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we have a home charger. When the electricians put in the solar, we had them install a level 2 charger at home. So we can charge up to 30 miles of driving per hour of charging. And so, when the sun is shining, we charge from the sun. If we need to at night, we can, still plug in and charge overnight. And our experience, these are the older Leafs. They have 80 and 100-mile range still. They've both come down about 20 miles in the 5 years of using them. But that's still plenty to get back and forth. I'm fortunate to work from home. but I could commute from pretty much anywhere on the island to Lihui or whatever, and then just have to recharge. We drive our daughter to school, back and forth a couple times a day. So after 3-4 runs, just plug it in, charge it. So not every day even. So it's just great for getting around, doing errands. It's never been a problem. Charging from home, we can usually keep it topped up, but sometimes you just forget, you don't get a chance. There are chargers around Kauai. We've been pretty good. They don't always fill up. They can sometimes, but usually when I need one, I can find one and plug in, go run some errands, or sit and browse the internet on my phone for half an hour, and then I can get where I want to go. So it really hasn't been a problem, and they've been very convenient for us.
Thanks, Andy. Cara, how about you?
So I mostly charge from home now. That's 99% of the time. We did have a nice charger installed when we had our solar put in, and it charges overnight to full battery. But before we had that installed, we were just using a regular plug and the charger that came with the Tesla, and it was very slow, and so our car was usually not fully charged. And I would go try to find chargers and get more charge in it, especially if we were going to the other side of the island, because we're in Maui. And so one time when I went to Lahaina, I looked it up and found that the Montage had a Tesla fast charger. And so I went over there and just walked along the beach. They were nice enough, the valet let me just go drive it over there and plug it in for free. Some of the other resorts will not let you do that, or they want you to pay for the privilege of parking there, and they want you to pay the full valet fee, which is too expensive to charge your car for maybe a couple hours. So it's challenging on Maui to find charging. A lot of the chargers don't work, or there just aren't some in some locations, but I did learn where the chargers were that would work for my car, that and hope that they have space. And so there's some locations like Maui Brewing Company had 4 that were working at one point. I think now only 2. But I kind of tried to plan around that before we got the better, more higher voltage charger installed in our home. So now that it's in our home, it's no problem. But that, I was going to say, that is the reason that we also did not choose to buy a Leaf, because I looked into buying a Leaf. I drive a lot for my job, and I didn't want to end up stranded, especially needing to pick up kids or having the kids in the car. And so the limited mileage is why we never, moved forward with the Leaf. So yeah.
I think you raised a very good point there about making sure that the car will meet your needs. So understanding what your driving requirements are, what your charging requirements are, that those things could very well determine or influence the type of EV or the EV that you purchase. For some people, a Nissan Leaf or the Mini with less than 150 mile range will be sufficient. But for others, they're probably going to look for over 200, maybe 300 mile range, given what the requirements are. So I think it's a very good point. Later in this session, I will make mention of the importance of charging. Well, we all know charging infrastructure is really important, but there are some policies that are being worked on to ensure that we have adequate charging infrastructure. And there's a role that we all can play in helping to make that happen with state legislation as well as local legislation. I think we're going to transition, but we're going to transition to a presentation here.
One last thing I forgot to mention. While I was doing the level 1 charging, I also supplemented that with the Chademo charger that Hiko has for those instances where I didn't want to wait, to charge overnight, that I would just go there and top up using the Chademo adapter. Yeah,
and what David's referring to is access to DC fast chargers. So these are chargers that can top off your battery pack 80% like in 30 minutes or so. They're fairly quick compared to level 2. And many cars are equipped to be able to leverage these fast chargers. Others need adapters, and others just are not compatible. So if you're looking into getting an EV, finding out if it's compatible with the DC fast chargers that are popping up around the state, that'll be a good thing to look into. So I think we're going to be transitioning now. We'll have time again towards the end of this whole segment, including after the presentations. There will be time for us to get your questions answered. And what I'd like to do now is, and thank you again to our panel, really appreciate all that. What I'd like to do now is transition to our first presenter, Tam Hunt. So Tam is a board member of Hawaii EV. He's, like I mentioned earlier, he's one of the leads for Big Island EV as well. He's the founder of Think Big, a local nonprofit that's focused on sustainability here on Hawaii Island. So Tam will be taking a few minutes here to share his guidance on buying an EV. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tam.
Thanks, Noel. Good morning and aloha to everyone here. Let me pull up my presentation. Yeah, so let me just offer a few suggestions for how to choose an EV if you're in the market, or even at the very beginning, if you're kind of thinking about maybe getting into an EV. So just a few things I'm going to introduce right away, and I'll go through some of the details here for about 10 minutes. So certainly range is a big one, depending on your driving needs, if you work at home versus working across an island. Power and drive quality on the Big Island. Of course, you've got some big mountains to climb sometimes. Cost is a big one. Aesthetics matter to most of us. Maintenance is a really big one for sure. And then last but not least, charging availability and cost of charging. So let me go through. And also real quick, these pictures here actually are my my current and prior EVs. I began my EV journey with a Fiat EV in Santa Barbara years ago, and I really liked it actually. It was about 80 miles range, purely an in-town car. They had a system where you actually had up to 2 weeks of renting a regular car if you needed to take trips. And so it actually worked out fairly well, even with a very low range. Fun little car. And then I currently have a Chevy Bolt I bought 4 years ago, which has been quite good. And then I have a Model Y for the last year, which is, different level of driving comfort and power. Okay, so first, look at your own personal needs, of course. What range do you need? Can you get by with an 80-mile range? Or buy a used Leaf, for example, which are quite cheap oftentimes. They've gotten more expensive, of course, in recent months. But generally speaking, you can buy used Leaf for as low as $6,000-$7,000, or even lower sometimes. What are your charging needs given your home situation? Are you a renter? Are you an owner of a house where you can put solar in your house, etc.? And then, as I mentioned, maintenance is really key. Find out what maintenance is available for the car you're looking at on your particular island. It varies from island to island. And then last, talk to your island's EV club. Noel mentioned already there's an EV club on each island, each of the 4 main islands. And so we have resources available to you to answer your whatever questions you have. Okay, I want to highlight some exciting developments real quick here. Kind of the new big thing in the EV market, which has been an active market now for about 10 years actually. But the new big thing is a whole new crop of EV trucks and pickups. And we've seen various inflection points in EV adoption in the last few years. The first one with the Nissan Leaf, the Model S, a very small bump. And then the Model 3 from Tesla came out a few years ago, saw a big bump in the US and worldwide. Saw another big bump when the Model Y came out. We're going to see, I think, an even bigger bump when these crops of EVs, or EV trucks come out this year and next. So Tesla Cybertruck, top left, the Rivian, top right, the Hummer, bottom left EV, and then the Ram, I believe that is I can't see actually the full picture because of the speakers here. Sorry, the Ford F-150 on the lower right. And these are all coming out fairly soon. Rivian's actually out in limited release already. Now, the first kind of thing to think about beyond the issues I've mentioned already is, do you want to buy new or used? And traditionally, you're going to get a lot better deal on used, but because of the big increase in interest in EVs in the last few months because of the Ukraine invasion. We've actually seen used car prices in general really skyrocket, including EV prices. And so there's actually not necessarily a cost benefit now in buying used. Now, you might get it quicker if you could buy it used, but the cost benefit may not be a real thing anymore. Find EV certified local dealers if you can, so they know what they're talking about. I found in my adventures in EV buying over the years, still unfortunately most dealers don't actually know much about the EVs they sell. There's various reasons for that, but they're not a big market still compared to gas cars. There's not as many incentives for the EVs as for regular gas cars, etc. And then a third tip, and this is a really important one, bring someone, a friend of yours or a family member who actually knows about EVs and can really help you on your journey. So looking at range, this is from my Chevy Bolt, this image, when I got it 4 years ago. And I like to know the boundaries of the things I own. And so the first week I think I took it over the mountain area. I live near Hilo on the Big Island, and I drove to Kona and back with my then girlfriend. And the official range for the Bolt was about 238 miles, but I found on the Big Island, pleasant surprise, I actually got about 290 because I think minimal AC use and warmer temperatures. So really nice boost over the advertised range. Nevertheless, going over the mountain, climbing to 6,000 feet, has a way of reducing your stated range pretty rapidly. And so we found out quite quickly that we needed to actually charge kind of an emergency situation on the saddle area on the Big Island. And we pulled over at a state park and actually found an outlet to plug in and get, maybe 10 miles of range to get down the mountain again without actually getting stuck. So keep in mind what your needs are for any car you buy. And each EV model is going to vary as to whether it's, an accurate estimate of real world range versus an overestimate or underestimate. And, you can look online, but I think given that Hawaii is its own kind of, climate, you're generally going to have to kind of just drive the EV you get to see how different it is than the stated range. It shouldn't be that different. I think if anything, you're going to see, like I did, a higher range than stated. Now, with one exception, my Tesla Model Y actually gets a fair amount lower range than it's stated. It says it has about 320 miles of range. I get maybe like 270, I think, typically, unfortunately. Now, you can actually check the efficiency at a really nice tool at fueleconomy.gov. And so you can compare different models that you're looking at for range and fuel efficiency. And just to give you an idea of how much more efficient electric vehicles are than gas vehicles, a really impressive gas vehicle like a Prius is maybe 55 miles per gallon. That's really good in, best conditions. Almost all EVs get over 100 miles per gallon equivalent. So when you compare the energy used, you're well over 100 miles for almost all of them. The Tesla Model 3 here long range shows 130 miles per gallon equivalent. So imagine, a typical gas car, say a Toyota Corolla might get 30 miles per gallon. We're getting 130 for the Tesla Model 3. So really dramatic improvement there in terms of the environment and just your personal efficiency. So power and drive quality. There's actually not too much to say here because I found with all the EVs I've driven, they have plenty of power for any driving I've done. I've gotten to the top of Mauna Kea a number of times in my Bolts. The Tesla Model Y, of course, has plenty of power. Even the Fiat EV had plenty of power. And so I'm curious if anyone wants to chime in if they disagree. But in my experience, every EV has had plenty of power for any kind of driving I've thrown at it on the islands here. Now, of course, getting down dirt roads with potholes is a different story entirely. But in terms of the actual power and drive quality, is really one of the nice benefits of driving an EV in general. Then in terms of costs, EVs are currently still more expensive up front than your average, when you're comparing apples to apples in terms of vehicle types. You're going to pay a little bit more up front for EVs. That changes depending on the model you get, if you can get a tax credit. So there's still actually a $7,500 tax credit for a lot of different EV models. Chevys and Tesla don't qualify anymore because they ran out. They're too popular, basically. But as far as I know, every other manufacturer still qualifies. And that's a nice, that's actually $7,500 in your pocket as a tax credit once you file your taxes. And some manufacturers and dealers even actually offer it to you up front. When you factor in fuel cost savings, it definitely makes it more affordable. And this, of course, is changing again because not only have gas prices gone up a lot, we're also going to see on the islands electricity prices going up a lot. So you've got to be, if you're being a numbers nerd like I am and doing your own spreadsheet, you got to take into account the changing prices for these commodities, and then make your own estimates about the probable future for those costs. But this is just a little spreadsheet that I put together when I was looking at buying the Bolt or Model 3, et cetera. And I opted on, the Bolt 4 years ago because it just was the best value at the time. Aesthetics. This is obviously a very personal choice. The Cybertruck is definitely not for everyone. I don't like the look very much, but I think it's going to be a great vehicle. I do have a reservation, so I'll probably get it when it comes out in a year or two. But I'm not buying it for the looks, that's for sure. The 150 Lightning is a standard-looking F-150, except for this lighting on the front and the back. They added that touch to make it clear it's actually an EV. Otherwise, it looks like a regular F-150. So if that's more your choice. These both start at $39,000 actually. So I think the range is in the 200s, low 200s at that level. If you want more range, you got to pay quite a bit more. And then maintenance, as I mentioned, is a really big issue. Make sure when you do buy one, either used or new, that you know where you can get it worked on if you have issues. Tesla doesn't have a shop here on the Big Island, but they do have kind of a roving fix-it guy who will come to you for most issues. If you have really big issues, you got to get it shipped to Oahu, I believe. I haven't had that happen yet. I've had actually no issues so far with mine. Again, on the Big Island where I live, and sorry if there's more Big Island stuff here than most would like, it's where I live and where I know the most. Toyota does Chevy Bolt maintenance because Toyota has experience with hybrids and electric drivetrains, and it's also the same owner, I believe, those two dealerships. But just make sure whatever island you live, that you identify who would actually do maintenance on your vehicle. EVs have the advantage of having much lower maintenance and checkup issues in general. But of course, any new models is likely to have some issues. And my Bolt has had some issues, not because it's an EV, but just, like suspension issues and alignment issues and brake issues. So just make sure you know who's going to be able to do that for you. And then last but not least, charging availability and cost. So this is a little image I put together from plugshare.com. And, we are seeing a really nice steady growth in charging stations around the islands. Oahu, unsurprisingly, has by far the most at 190 locations. The green are level 2, and the brown are DC fast chargers. And the fast chargers are about, generally speaking, maybe 8 times faster than the level 2. So if you need to charge fully, you're going to want to find a fast charger. If you need to charge a bit while you're shopping, what have you, level 2 would be nice. We also have 52 locations on Maui, 31 on Kauai, and 42 on the Big Island. And we're seeing more and more go in. Now, as someone else mentioned already, a big issue has been maintenance. A lot of these stations are often not working. You can also find out if they are working or not on PlugShare. So be sure to check if you're going to a new location. The costs are going to vary by island. On the Big Island, it is 51 cents to 62 cents per kilowatt hour for a fast charger. That's not cheap. That's comparable to the cost of gas right now, maybe a little bit less. Charging level 2 will often be a lot lower, may even be free in some cases, at least for a couple hours. So in general, I would not recommend relying on public charging solely. It's far better to actually charge at home. It's going to be cheaper even using purely grid power by quite a bit, particularly because there are special EV charging rates available for most utilities. But then the real, holy grail here is driving in the sunshine, where if you are a homeowner or even if you live in a condo association, if you can, in fact, get solar installed on the rooftops, either on your home or as kind of a community solar situation, then you can, in theory, drive on sunshine from your own location. and that feels really good. And it's also a lot cheaper. Solar has come down in cost so much where actually it's very cheap compared to grid power here in Hawaii. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tam. I'd like to take a couple of minutes here to share a video that will illustrate something about affordability and pre-owned vehicles. Pre-owned vehicles often represent value, a lot of value, because they are, they've gone through the depreciation already, and many still have warranties, and many people have been able to avail of them as a way to get behind the wheel affordably. This video was produced by Drive Electric Hawaii. So I'm going to share, I'm going to play it now.
My name is Nicole Chatterson. I'm a resident of Manoa, a valley on the island of Oahu. We purchased our secondhand vehicle because of budget reasons, and also because we both understand the value of buying secondhand. It reduces your impact on extracting raw minerals and resources to make something new. So we've had our 2012 Leaf for about 2.5 years, and she's fantastic. I work in Haleiwa Town on the North Shore, so I do a fair amount of commuting, and I can get up to the North Shore on a charge, and I still have miles left over to get me to a public charging station where I can fill my battery back up for the way home. I empathize with the feeling of EVs not being financially available, and we were thrilled to find that there are lots and lots of EVs on the secondhand market. So just like shopping for any secondhand vehicle, you're going to want to make sure the tires are good, the brakes are good. Another thing you want to be looking for with secondhand EVs is the life of the battery. So there's questions you can ask the previous owner. Have they ever had the battery replaced? How many bars are left in the battery charge is another great question. And that will give you a sense of how much mileage you'll get out of one charge for your EV. Feels really good to be contributing to Hawaii's clean energy future. Once you understand the impacts of fossil fuel and what that's doing to our climate and our planet, it's empowering to find a way to take action towards lessening your own impact. And EVs are a great way to do that, in my opinion, especially if you're buying secondhand, because you're reusing all those materials that went into making the EV, and that's a beautiful thing. So I feel like I'm making a positive impact because I'm working towards a solution to that problem.
That was amazing. The first thing she said that caught my ear was the fact that it's also good for the planet because of reuse, right? The ability to have to make use of something that's already out there versus buying new. So so hopefully that inspires us as well to take that into consideration as we consider our next car. I'd like to now turn this over to Nanette, who's going to be sharing with us a bit more information about charging. Nanette?
I'm Nanette Vinton. I've been an EV owner since 2013 when I got my first Model S, and I actually did go and see one and test drive one, unlike a lot of people in Hawaii who were early adopters of Tesla. So I'm on my 5th car now, currently driving a Model X. So today I'm going to talk about There we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the questions that someone considering an EV might have in regards to charging. And those are typically, how do I charge my car? Where do I charge my car? How much is it going to cost? And then how often do I need to charge? And Tam actually covered some of this, but we'll go over it, some of this information again as well. So how do you charge your car? So there's 3 different types of primary types of chargers there that you can use to charge your EV. There's level 1, which is your standard wall outlet, and we call this trickle charging because it's actually the slowest method of charging. You can get about 40 miles overnight, And that might be fine for people who don't drive that much. So this might be enough of a charging option for you. If you do need a faster charging option, you can move over to a level 2, which requires a 240 volt outlet, and you can usually get about 25 to 35 miles per hour of charging. So if you're empty, I don't recommend you drive your EV all the way down to 0, but you can actually get a full charge within 4 to 8 hours with a level 2. And level 2s are the most common. You can charge them at home, and then you'll also see them used as public chargers in various locations. The third type of charger is a DC fast charger, and I know we've already talked about that a little bit. It's the fastest method of charging, and you can get up to 80% of charging of your full range in about 30 to 44 minutes. Depending on the type of adapter or the connector that your car has, you can get anywhere from about 70 miles up to about 200 miles of charge in about 20 to 30 minutes. So where do you charge? Most EV owners charge at home. It's the most convenient as far as charging. You get home and you just plug it in, and you can start charging. Or some cars, you have the option of being able to plug in and then schedule the time that you do want to charge. So if you want to charge off peak hours or right before you head into work, you can schedule that as well. There are time of use rates available from HECO on the states that they service, islands that they service. And basically time of use is, like it says, there's different rates for the time of the day that you charge.
We didn't go to take a fucking piss.
All right. So these are HECO's time of use rates for April. And as you can see, the midday rates are the lowest because this is when they would, HECO prefers you to charge. So they're incentivizing you to charge during the day. So those rates are probably about half of the off-peak or even the peak rates. And you can find this information on HECO's website. And where do you go to get a home charger? There's various charger manufacturers out there that sell them: Juicebox, Siemens, ChargePoint, Clipper Creek. You can also pick them up at the big box stores, Lowe's and Home Depot. Costco sells them online, as well as Amazon. EV dealers, Tesla has their own wall charger that you can buy on their website. And then you can ask the dealer where you buy your EV from for recommendations on the types of home charging that they recommend. Cost is about $500 to over $1,000, including installation, and that price variance is basically dependent on where you want to install your home charger as it relates to where your electrical box is. To install a charger at home, you'll need a dedicated home charger. You'll need a dedicated 220 or 240 volt circuit. You can also charge your charging cord into a dedicated dryer outlet. And most licensed electricians can install both the charger as well as the circuit. So another type of option for charging is public charging. The state of Hawaii has a law that all public places with at least 100 stalls must have at least one EV charger. So you'll see EV chargers all over the place: shopping centers, office buildings, hospitals, Blaisdell, any public place with a lot of parking. Level 2 charging is the most, chargers are the most common ones that you'll see. And HECO also has a DC fast charger network across the state. And Tesla superchargers are finally here. We finally got our first set of superchargers after waiting a long time at Pearl Ridge Center on Oahu. So you can see the very happy Tesla owner there being able to supercharge for the first time. And Tesla's looking to open up more EV superchargers across the state eventually. Another option is Tesla destination chargers. And you can find those typically at the Tesla stores or service center or at hotels across the state. And a little known fact is that even if you don't have a Tesla, you can buy an adapter to be able to use these destination chargers. And the last bullet point there, I kind of mentioned that you may need a different plug adapter for your car. Teslas need typically a J1772 and probably a CCS adapter going forward to use some of the public chargers that are out there. For fast chargers, you also need a CHAdeMO if you have a Tesla. So who uses public chargers? Typically renters and condo dwellers who don't have access to home charging. Thankfully, this is getting a little more popular where the condo buildings are having some kind of EV charging within their building, but there's still public charging available. Those with older or shorter range models, just as we saw in that used EV video, may have to rely on public charging once they get to their destination and then do a charge before they go home. If you forget to plug in at home, you can use public charging. There is a cost for charging, and that varies. It's kind of Tam said. It's anywhere from no charge for some of the slower chargers to maybe $2 to $4 an hour for the level 2 chargers, and the DC fast chargers are more expensive. In addition, if you're using a level 2 charger that's in a parking lot where you have to pay to get into the parking lot, you have to consider that charge as well. Okay, so how do you find these chargers? Tam kind of showed a map of plug shares, the chargers using the PlugShare app. So it's pretty easy to use. You just type in the address that you're going to, landmark, or you can use the map to scroll. And you just click on the charger that you want to go to, and it'll give you the details like it shows here on the right side. And location, how much it costs to charge, is it a paid parking lot? So again, if it's a paid parking lot, you have to pay to get into that lot. And also the network provider, this one's OptConnect. And then it shows the plugs available at that charger. So it's a J1772 for this particular charger that's actually downtown. So if you have a Tesla, you would need an adapter to use this charger. And this is just a statewide map I pulled yesterday from PlugShare that shows the amount of charging locations, not just chargers, because these locations may have multiple chargers in them. So finally, how often and how long do you need to charge? I think it's interesting that our panel, you saw a mixture of charging methods that they use. Besides home, they also use public charging as well as fast charging. So it depends on the charging station you use, if you're using the level 1, level 2, or the fast charger. It also depends on the range of your car. You know, if you have an older EV that has less than 100 miles of range versus some of the newer ones that have over 300 miles of range, obviously for the lower range cars, you may need to charge more. And how far you drive every day is also going to affect, obviously, how much you'll need to charge. As far as temperature goes, this doesn't apply as much here in Hawaii, but in colder climates, it does take more energy to heat up the battery, so that affects range as well. And finally, driving style. If you've got a heavy foot and you enjoy the instant acceleration of an EV, that is going to affect your range as well. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. Thank you.
Hey, Nanette, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. We're running a little short on time. We were supposed to share a few of the videos that were produced by Drive Electric Hawaii to kind of give everyone a sense for how it is to actually get behind the wheel. And I think what I'll do now is play the Mach-E virtual test drive that was produced by Drive Electric Hawaii.
Welcome to beautiful sunny Kailua. I'm Bill Casino, and this is the new Mustang Mach-E fully electric car. Just brand new for 2021. We just got it in. Ford has done some wonderful things with this. As you take a walk around front here, you can see that they have incorporated the Mustang logo and the front end, so you know it is a Mustang. It is an SUV, 4-door, does hold 5 passengers. When we start off at the front, you do see that there is storage underneath, a little compartment here for using as a trunk. The panels inside of here are removable. The nice thing about this is it is a cooler. It does have a drain right in the center here, so you can fill this with ice, fill it with whatever beverage you want or any foods that you want to stay cold. As we come around up front, you do notice the cameras and the sonar and the sensors for parking up front. It has a full 360, so you can look at your entire vehicle from the screen inside. It does come with either 17, 18, or on the GT Sport model, 20-inch wheels that are all aluminum with 2-piston brakes on it. Very sports car. Come around to the side, you have a little button that's right here that you push and the door pops open. You open up the door and it is very wide inside. You can see the leather trimmed interior. You can see that it is a big screen on the inside, which we'll go over later. But it is a very spacious vehicle compared to other SUVs and sport type vehicles that are out there. There are 2 different levels of batteries that are in this vehicle. You can either get the 68 kilowatt or the 88 kilowatt. It also comes in either rear wheel drive or front wheel drive. Your 68 kilowatt gets about 250 to 270 miles equivalency, and your 88 kilowatt can go up to almost 300. All depends on how you drive it, is how much mileage you're going to get with it. One thing I really like that they've done is inside of here where you charge your battery, instead of having the lights on the hood, you have the lights that are right here that will light up blue when the battery is fully charged when you have it plugged in. It also has given you the option of either using a regular level 2 charger or a level 3 charger. So when you get into the vehicle, you push the brake, push the button, and then the fireworks start. You do have your main screen here, and if you push the little car up here, home, this will take you to the home button. That shows you the 3 different drive modes. Engage, which is your best for economy, your whisper, which is your normal driving conditions, and unbridle is your sport mode, which gives you better takeoff and it does brake you faster. You do have down here propulsion sound. As you know, most battery or electric cars are quiet. This will actually gives you the sound of a generator as you drive. Ambient lighting will change the color of the lights inside the vehicle when the doors open. And we're on 1 pedal drive, which means you only use the power pedal to drive, and when you take your foot off of it, it will automatically stop when you're approaching a stop sign or a stoplight or a situation. You do have camera, parking, access, driver assistance, which this also has your auto hold for when you're going up or down an incline when taking off, and traction control. The cameras are nice because you do have 360 all the way around, or you can just take a look at the front, so when you're pulling into a parking spot or nervous about how close you are to another vehicle. Up at the top we have our menu, and you can see where it says phone pairing, radio, tells you when your next EV charge is due and how long it'll take and where it's at. So you can find out where the closest charging stations are for you. If we head back to normal, you do have the radio, phone, navigation, which with navigation you can actually put in where you would like to go by name. Honolulu Museum, Honolulu Zoo, and so you don't always need to know the address, and you can store it in the system. And of course, the owner's manual is on here, Bluetooth audio, Android, and Apple CarPlay, so you can plug your phone in and it will work for you. It also has Ford Pass. Ford Pass gives you diagnostics every month, and it also has a locator on which your insurance companies will like. You step on the brake to go into neutral, which automatically gives you the rear camera, neutral, and drive. Then if you want, and if you're going down a mountain, you can put it into low, and it'll actually, the regenerative brakes will charge your battery quicker as you coast down the hill. We're going to go ahead and put this back into park. So one thing I've always said about electric cars and EV is they remind me of being a child and getting a racetrack for Christmas, the old slot car, because the more you push the pedal or the more you pull the handle, the faster the car will rev and the faster the car will go. This car actually goes 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. So this really does handle like a sports car and not an SUV. A little bit stiffer suspension, a little bit stiffer steering. You do feel like you are in control of the vehicle. Even when coming up to turns, you just take your foot off of the pedal and you can slow yourself around the turns without stepping on the brake. You really can get used to the braking system on here because it does relieve the fatigue from stopping and going and moving your foot. The cameras are nice because you do have 360 all the way around, or you can just take a look at the front so when you're pulling into a parking spot or nervous about how close you are to another vehicle. I would thank you all for watching. Any questions you have, please feel free to give me a call or stop by at Windward Ford in Kailua. Aloha!
So does anyone have any question they'd like to raise with our speakers and presenters? Yes, go ahead. Is it Siren?
Irene, yeah.
Serene, yeah.
Hi, I'm with the Clean Energy Wayfinders. I think Parker Kashima might have said mahalo, hello,
Yes.
aloha today. Okay.
Yes.
So we're learning a lot about EVs, but wow, your presentations are so informative. I'm so glad that I tuned in. So Tam mentioned that, so we're like close to 60%, 60 cents a kilowatt, if not at 60 cents on the Big Island for peak, usage to plug in. But he also mentioned that, plugging in at home is so much cheaper. So we have like a number for, peak usage on grid. Do we have a number for solar at home? How much it might cost, the difference, how much cheaper it might be?
Yeah, hi, Cyrene. I can just give an estimate. So it's up to 60 cents a kilowatt hour for DCFC charging on the Big Island. That's going to vary by island. This is a very rough estimate, depending on the cost of your solar and how big it was, who installed it and when, and that metering, et cetera. I think it's a really rough estimate. Might be about 20, 25 cents a kilowatt hour compared. So less than half. And in my case, it's even cheaper than that because I got a really good deal on my solar. So it's just, it's a much better proposition to do charging at home in general, and even better to do solar at home.
I appreciate you for even attempting a ballpark. Like some people won't do it because there's so many factors, and you did it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And good job on getting that good deal.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that when I had my Tesla, I tracked the energy in my home solar system, and 7 200-watt panels actually produced enough power to drive my car 1,000 miles a month. And this was after a few years of tracking the numbers.
7 200-watt panels, 1,000 miles a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
The other thing I'd like to add is that even with the DC fast charger rates, and Tam, I think you mentioned this earlier, that there are some calculators out there you can utilize to compare what it would cost to gas up a car versus a comparably sized electric vehicle, and at that rate, like you said earlier, it's comparable to gasoline. The current prices, and so it's less or comparable, and even if it's comparable. When you take into account the total cost of ownership, right? The low maintenance associated with electric cars, you don't have oil changes. There are less things to break and maintain. The electric car comes out ahead. There was a Consumer Reports item. It was like $4,600 or so would be the lifetime savings for when you compare a gas car with or a electric car to a gas car. So you take the whole thing into account, the fueling cost as well as the maintenance cost, and EVs come out ahead. Any other question out there? Stephen, you had a comment about gasoline. Okay, yeah, I think I may have addressed that. Carolyn has a question. What is the vision strategy for getting more people to transition to EVs? So addressing the barriers, and one key barrier, which is something that we're addressing or attempting to, is just awareness or lack thereof. So once people understand that, this is a great replacement for their normal mode of transportation, and they understand what is entailed in terms of ownership and charging and all these different concerns or misconceptions that are out there, they will get behind the wheel, right? I mean, there are other considerations, finances, et cetera. But as these cars come down in price and they're price parity with gas cars, it's essentially a question of helping people understand what the benefits are, not just to the planet, but also to the environment and also the pocketbook. So education is a big part of the strategy. The other part of the strategy is to address the public charging situation. So it doesn't matter if you have charging at home. If you're commuting long, you're going to need to have access to a public charging. And if you're not in a situation where you have home charging, you're going to need access to public charging to be able to get behind the wheel. So those are two of the top things that we're addressing: public awareness and then the charging infrastructure. And I welcome our other folks to add to it as well. Ron, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Super presentation. Thank you so much, everybody. Just one question. Looking at that Mustang sales presentation, it looked like the sound generator for low-speed driving could be turned on and off. On my Kia Niro EV, you can't turn it off. Whether you like it or not, it's there. And I'm wondering is that the experience for most other EV owners here, that you can't turn off the coffee grinder sound when you're driving at 50 miles an hour?
I'll have others.
I'm surprised to hear that because our Niro doesn't have an internal sound. And I know the EV6, it's programmable. When I first bought the car, I thought, gee, this car is, or when I test drove it, I thought it's kind of noisy. But then when I found that I could shut that sound off, it's very quiet.
Yeah, I can chime in on my my Bolt and my Model Y. My Bolt has no sound at all. It was sold in 2018 before there was any federal law requiring sounds. And then my Model Y has a backup noise, kind of like a low, like spaceship kind of whirring noise, but regular driving, no noise at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's becoming a requirement for safety reasons. But even my vehicles don't have any sound generator. Virginia has a question. I'm concerned about the interior heat effect on the screen. I purchased a UV reflective car cover as well as a window and roof and side reflectors. I can keep the interior to around 100. Is that okay? She has a Tesla Model Y. Anyone want to take that on?
I can just jump on that really quick, Noel. Nice thing about having a Model S back in 2016 is Tesla sold shades for the interior glass area. They stopped, as I understand, offering that as an option. It does make a big difference in keeping the interior cooler and also sheltering the screen from too much UV. So I don't know if there may be an aftermarket solution for that if she does some research.
Thank you, Bill. I didn't realize she had joined, so thanks very much. Bill is also a board member for Hawaii EV. Thank you for that guidance. And Virginia, when I park my Tesla out and, when I go shopping, I turn on the temperature control. I just leave it so it's, it doesn't go above 80 or so. So that might be another, and it uses a, minuscule amount of energy to maintain that temperature. So these are some of the latest EVs that are out there that are coming soon.
It's time for electric to turn into lightning. An electric truck that can match the ambitions of this nation. That can haul on both ends. That shows up to the job site with an extensive resume. That can help build your house. And if need be, power that house. That feels like a bullet train and works like a freight train. The only EV quick enough, tough enough, smart enough to carry our name. The only EV that's an F-150. The fully electric F-150 Lightning.
We're in the middle of the desert in Arizona at a proving grounds that allows us to explore the limits of this vehicle, both on-road and off-road. We try to subject it to the harshest terrain possible so we can understand what works and what doesn't. What you might consider punishing it off-road, but we're learning, we're taking all that data in and constantly developing, making it better on-road and off-road.
All electric, fully connected luxury. The iX will make new traveling experiences possible and the road your favorite destination. It's more than driving redesigned, it's individual mobility redefined. Introducing the next generation of electric with the ultimate driving performance you can only expect from BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
And this is just a handful of the new cars that are coming through. I really just wanted to highlight the fact that in addition to what we have today. Some of these are already coming on the market, and some will be coming on the market soon. So mainly wanted to highlight that there's going to be an EV for almost every need and every preference. If you're curious about whether or not this is something for you, feel free to reach out to our organization and other EV owners, and we'll be more than happy to help you. I just wanted to share real quick one other thing, and this is a call to action. I mentioned earlier in the chat that there was a bill, Bill 120, which is actually going to be heard very soon. In fact, it's going to be on the 5th of May, I believe, as well as on the 19th. And the call to action is, well, let me explain first of all what the let me share the screen real quick here. Bill 120 is a bill that seeks to enforce the state law that was passed last year to allow the counties to enforce EV charging and EV parking regulations. The guidance essentially is that if you have a large parking lot, 100 stalls or so, there's a requirement for you to install a dedicated EV parking stall as well as EV charging. Not only that, those charging stations need to be maintained. And someone mentioned here, many have mentioned that we have charging stations all over the place, but many of them are not operational. And in certain situations, you have big parking lots that don't have any charging station. So Bill 120 is a Hawaii County bill that is intended to enforce that law. And it is going to be the foundation or the inspiration for the other counties to do the same. So we're asking for all of our members to submit testimony, and it could be a couple of minutes of your time to essentially write to the planning commissions and ask them to provide that support. It could be I support Bill 120 or please support Bill 120, and you send it off. There are these two email addresses I put in the chat. One is for the May 5th, 9 a.m. So we need to submit testimony by the 3rd. And then the other is on the 19th. So we need to submit testimony by the 17th. Again, a very short email. Please support this bill. Include your reasons if you want to. And the more of this we get to them, the more we can help convince them to support this moving forward. So that is the thing that I wanted to share. And then lastly, Lorn, I think you had a comment you wanted to make.
Yeah. For those of you that don't have an EV, Noel and I have encouraged dozens of people to buy EVs, and I've never heard one regret. And basically people that are driving EVs are telling me I would never go back to a gasoline operated car.
Okay, well, thanks for that plug, Lorn. Really appreciate it. Okay, so our event is officially over, but as I indicated, we're going to stay behind for any other questions that may have been raised that we didn't answer yet. So does anyone have any question they'd like to bring up that we haven't addressed yet? And
just something to the Big Island.
Yes.
So the Big Island, they're doing a lot of transportation upgrades for public transportation. Right now, John Ando, and they are about to give $12 a ride in subsidies for Lyft and Uber on the Big Island. And I'm wondering if you guys have had any luck in supporting the Lyft and Uber drivers and getting an EV, because I know they're just like, individuals, because they could give a lot of rides. One person can make a difference. Yeah,
I'm glad you raised that, because I wasn't aware of that specific program. So it's something for us to follow up on. But in general, I think one of the things that will be required for Uber and Lyft shared mobility providers, and also rental fleets, is public charging. So until the public charging infrastructure can be built out to the point where it is sufficiently, it could be relied upon because they're there, they're fast, they're working. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to, expand in that particular space. The positive thing is that there is a lot of effort right now to expand public charging. The state law last year that was passed now allows for sustained funding of the EV charger rebate program as an example, right? So 3 cents of the barrel tax goes to funding this rebate program, where if you're a business owner and you want to install a charging station, you can get thousands of dollars to help augment or cover the cost of doing that. So that's one thing. Bill 120, like I mentioned earlier, is going to result in more EV chargers being installed, and also those chargers being maintained. Here on the Big Island, there's a charging station at Home Depot, for example. It was like one of the most popular ones when it first came out, but it's been out of order for years now. So situations like that will be rectified when we have this bill passed, because it's actually going to be enforcing the rules. And if there are, I'm sorry?
At Home Depot, they fix things. How does that happen?
There's bureaucracy, right, with the headquarters that they have to work through. But the point, though, is that once we have more of these charging stations, it's not just the Big Island, it's across the state, it'll be more feasible for Uber drivers, right? It behooves them to get behind the wheel of an electric car because it's going to be more cost effective, more money for them as a result of that. But they need to have access. We need to provide access to an adequate public charging infrastructure. In the chat, I think there was a comment here. Would love to get a link to. Okay, we answered that. Maybe Sonia, you can help me understand which ones have not been responded to yet. Oh, can any recommend the best used EVs or plug-in that is affordable? And Tam, I think you answered that, right, with the Craigslist link. So there are a number of EVs out there. Again, it really depends on your needs. But if you go to hawaiieev.org, there's a page for affordable EVs. We have a link in there. You just click on it. It pulls up the latest list of used EVs on Craigslist. And if you already have an idea of what will work for you, it could be a Leaf, it could be a Tesla, it could be a Bolt, etc. Then you go on there and you're going to be able to see hopefully affordable EVs. I say hopefully because the cost of used cars and cars in general have gone up because of inflation and also high demand, right, from with the high fuel prices. But in general, I would start with what are your needs, what would the ideal car be, and then shop. Look at the pre-owned market first, and then look at the new as well.
Can I add something to that, Noel?
Yes, Bill.
I just want to advise everybody that's new to EVs or looking in the used market, certainly a lot of opportunities there, to make sure whatever vehicle you're looking at, is it still inside the battery warranty from the manufacturer? Because if you buy an EV that's outside the battery warranty, you're faced potentially, if the battery does fail, with a substantial amount of replacement cost, out-of-pocket replacement cost, in some cases higher than what you paid for the vehicle to begin with. So just be aware of that. And I know from personal experience, I had that with my Chevy Volt. I owned the car for 10 years, and it was a wonderful car. Would have kept it for another 10 years. And I had one cell fail in the battery pack, and I took it over to Deleuze in Hilo, which is the Chevy dealer, and they quoted me $19,500 to replace the entire battery because that was all they could do. I'm not suggesting that's going to be that way with every manufacturer, every make, but just be aware.
That's great advice, Bill. And I think it's also important to be able to understand that is, have the car inspected, take it to a dealer that provides service, and they can give you a sense for the health of the battery pack. So that's a really, really important point that you've raised there. So thank you. I'm just going to ask folks, because I know there's a long list of questions here, but it looks like many of those questions may have already been addressed. But are there other comments or questions that anyone would like to ask or share at this time?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Hi, Padma on Maui. I've been happily driving a Leaf for 8 years. The past 3 years, I am dependent on public charging systems, which have really diminished as far as fast chargers. We've gone from 12 to 6. And I know that will change over time. My understanding is that at a fast charger, when you reach 80%, that it then goes to about half speed. And this doesn't seem to be, if this is true, I believe it is, that most people know about this. And just as a courtesy to others, if someone else is waiting in queue to get to charge, I certainly will stop at 80% if I see someone else is waiting. So if that is correct information, I just did want to share that because I learned that from other people, and we're a conscious bunch of folks, which I really appreciate. We're the pioneers. It's awesome, and mahalo for a fantastic presentation.
Padma, thanks for sharing that. I think that's a very important point to share. In addition, well, let me just couch it by saying there's common courtesy, right, that we need to share with others. And some of it will be possible if you're aware of the situation. So like you just described, if people are not aware that, as it starts to approach 80% or beyond 80%, it starts to taper down speed-wise. And I think it's per design, right? It's intended to help protect the battery. If people are aware of that, then they can maybe be a bit more conscientious about, sharing, right? The same thing with having an EV and then parking in an EV stall with the intent of just leveraging the parking, because oftentimes it's convenient without charging. That's just as bad as a gas car parking in that stall and occupying that stall. There could be somebody out there who might need the charger, and that would be obviously inappropriate. So I think there's some common courtesy things that maybe the early adopters are very in tune with, but we're now seeing mass adoption. More and more people are getting behind the wheel, and I think that we have an opportunity to educate. So we can do that individually, and certainly maybe it's an opportunity for Hawaii EV as well, as we share information on our website and social. Thank you. There's another question, a hand up. Yes.
That's me again. Sorry, we had a presentation for the Hawaii Clean Energy Wayfinders where I believe it was a Helco representative or HECO for EV specifically, and she was saying that there's a map that Helco has created where you can add your requests for chargers. Yes. Yeah, it's their and maybe we can share this with the notes, but there is that survey that it's been live for a while now, and it's intended to help them crowdsource information about where the chargers need to be. They have a lot of data at this point, so it's a question about implementation, and implementation needs to cover reliable equipment, redundancy, so there needs to be more than one DC fast charger at each of the sites, and then also just making sure that they're maintained and up and going. So yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. And thank you for telling me all that. I'm taking so many notes right now. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, my pleasure. So again, we're over time. Unless there's any other questions or comments, I think we're going to be concluding here. I want to thank all of our speakers, our board members and owners for joining us today. This recording will be shared on our website and social media. And again, thanks very much. Thanks for caring, and happy Earth Day.